There we are, 4:30, a whole new time slot. And also a whole new place. Yes, slightly echoey, but welcome. Welcome to the brand new look of the Rough Science Workshop. Hello. I hope things are well for you. Are you at home at the moment? Are you in lockdown? If you are, good work. Keep it up. If you're struggling during the lockdown, that's okay. We're all in this together. My name's Sean, and this is the Rough Science Workshop. And what we are going to be doing is this week is Slime Week. We're going to be looking at a whole variety of different sorts of slimes over the course of this week. Each day we're going to have something a little bit different. But at the beginning of every Rough Science Workshop, I like to ask one question, which is this. What is science? What is science? When I say the word science, what pops into your head? For me, science is a way to answer questions. Science is a way to answer questions. And so what I am going to be looking at today is a type of slime. In fact, all the slimes we're going to use this week are going to help answer questions. Looking at the way that different mixtures mix together, the way that they flow and move, tells us something a little bit about what they're made out of. The one that I want to make today is a classic. Some people call it Oobleck. Some people call it magic mud. Other people call it silly slime. Either way, it's all using the one same ingredient. So we're going to use some cornflour. Basically, if you go out to get some cornflour, make sure the cornflour that you get is pure cornflour. So when you pick it up off the shelf, just be sure to check the ingredients and make sure it's only got corn flour in it. If it says that it's a mixture with some wheat flour, don't go for that one. Go for the one that's pure corn flour. This stuff here is some pure corn flour. It's sometimes used in cooking as a thickening agent. So if you've just done yourself a great big stir fry or a stew, you can throw in a cup of this stuff just to make it a little bit more solid. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to add some water to it. Well, not this entire tub, although that could be fun. What we're going to do is we're going to mix it all into here. So let's have a closer look. So having a closer look, what we're going to do is start by adding a scoop or two of some corn flour like this. Let's go for 3. Now I'm not going to be particularly precise about the measurements here. I've got about 3 tablespoons or thereabouts in there. It doesn't need to be precise, this. But what we're going to do next is we're going to add a little bit of water to it. But we don't want to have very much water. We just want a little splash so that we can stop and see what's going to happen to it. So if we pour in a little splash like that, this next bit is where it starts to get interesting, because the powder here looks like it's getting wet. But as I mix this stick to try and mix the stuff together, a couple of things I'll start to note. First of all, it's really hard to stir around. But if I stir slowly, the stick moves. I stir quickly though, and suddenly, it's really hard to stir to the extent that it almost breaks the stick. Almost. So the faster I go through this mixture, the harder it is to mix. The slower I go, the easier it is to mix, which is a peculiar sort of thing. Now, the name Oobleck comes from a Dr. Seuss story way back in 1949. It was called Bartholomew and the Oobleck. And the Oobleck was green. So if you're going to make Oobleck, the only color that you could possibly make it has to be green. So let's pop a couple of drops of green food dye in there. And let's see if we can mix this stuff up. So same deal again. If I go fast, it just doesn't want to mix. But if I go slowly, I can move the stick around and slowly start to mix it. And over time, eventually, my Oobleck will turn green all the way through. There we go. Now at this point, people like to say, hey, can I touch it? And the answer is, of course! Let's look at some that I made a little bit earlier. I'm going to put this stuff to one side and let's come back up here. Here's some that I made earlier. A big tub of it. And this big tub of it, we can see some peculiar properties that this Oobleck has. One of those things is that I can actually touch it quickly. Like that. My finger stays dry. In fact, I can punch it. My hand stays mostly dry. On the other hand, if I touch it slowly, my finger disappears into the Oobleck, and if I pull it out slowly, it's hanging off my finger. Again, if I punch it in slow motion. Adrian! And it drips off my hand like that. So, if we move it fast, it acts like a solid. If we move it slow, it acts like a liquid. So if I scoop it really quickly here, get myself a nice big handful of it, and then just keep it moving around in my hands, I could probably keep it as a nice solid ball, like this. Whee! Like that. But if I stop moving it all of a sudden, it turns back into a liquid, falls out in between. And this, parents, is the secret of the fun stuff with slime. So be sure to be ready to clean up after the messy fun that you can have with this. See if you can scoop handfuls of it and throw it from hand to hand, but don't do it on the good couch. Do it outside. Now, why is it doing this? Well, you remember earlier I said you need to get some corn flour. Make sure it's pure corn flour. And it's because corn flour, when it's all ground up, when you mix it with the water flows between the particles of the corn flour. And if you start to press against it, those particles of corn flour kind of lock together and squeeze the water out of them. And so they end up acting like a great big massive solid. But then when you take the pressure off, they separate, allow some of the water to get back in between, and suddenly the whole lot starts flowing like a fluid. So press it hard, it works like a solid, and let it flow, it works like a fluid. Look, when you go along to science museums and that sort of places where they do demonstrations with these, they will usually throw around the term non-Newtonian fluid. But what does that mean? Well, Newton was a physicist, and when you talk about Newtonic fluids or Newtonian fluids, you're talking about things like water or air. Even though air is air, we still refer to it as a fluid when we're talking about it in physics. But if we have a close look at water when it flows, let's have a close look at this. So water when it flows, this is a Newtonian fluid. The way that it behaves is that if I push hard against it, it still flows. If I pour it from one bucket to the other, it still flows. If I try to pick it up, it's going to flow between my fingers. But the non-Newtonian fluid flows, but if I try to make it flow faster, it ends up what's called shearing, shattering and breaking, and acting like a solid. So this is acting a lot different to how a lot of the fluids that we have, like water and air around us. Water and air, we have certain mathematical models and equations that we can use to model and predict them. But non-Newtonian fluids, a bit harder to actually predict how they flow and move about. So there you go. That's Oobleck. Let's come back up here. So that's our first slime that we're going to be looking at for Slime Week. What I'm going to do for the rest of the week is look at different slimes on different days. So tomorrow we're going to be looking at some slime that we can make from a certain powder called Metamucil. On Wednesday we're going to be looking at the world's greatest slime, in my humble opinion, which has a whole heap of ingredients which I'll tell you about later. On Thursday, we're going to look at something that's not so much a slime, but is a fluid with very interesting properties, a bit like Oobleck. We're going to be playing around with plaster of Paris. And on Friday, we're going to be doing something that's completely unrelated to slime directly. We're just going to be looking at some really cool chemistry on Fridays, because Fridays is our Tricky Friday day. There's harder science experiments. So if you like harder stuff to try out, come back in on Friday. For the rest of this session, I want to finish this off with a little bit of microscope time. Every now and then we go around, we find interesting things to look at under the microscope. And it just so happens I've got a geranium bush out the front of my place. And there's holes in the leaves. And it turns out we found out what was causing those holes. So what I have here is our geranium leaf. And what we're going to do is use the microscope and get a closer look at what's going on. Now, before we switch over to the microscope, let me introduce it to you. For those people who haven't seen it yet, this is our microscope here. It's a digital microscope, so we've got a lens at the front to be able to make the picture bigger. But instead of an eyepiece at the back, we've got a camera. So let's switch over this and see what we can see. First of all, we're going to test to see if it's working. Let's put it against my thumb or finger. Here we go. Put it against my finger. You can see, I've been playing with cornflour. You can see it all in between my fingerprint there. And my nail. All right, let's have a closer look at the leaf. So this leaf, you can see this is the back of the leaf. And you can see all of the different little cells making up the leaf. And look, there's one of the veins that runs through the leaf. There's the edge. The other side of the geranium leaf is covered in hairs, little fine hairs. You'll find that those little hairs make it very difficult for water to sit on these leaves. If you put a little droplet of water on these, it just rolls off. Kitchen. But also, whoa, what's this? Here is one of the holes. Oh, hang on. Let's have a look at the water trying to sit on this. Here's part of the geranium leaf. Like I said, covered in hairs. And if we put some water on it like this, bloop, there it is there. And if I tip it up, we'll see it roll off. One of the useful features that a lot of leaves have, being able to do this, is that when the water rolls off, it picks up dirt. So the leaf ends up being able to clean itself by not having the water stick to the leaf quite so easily. The water rolls off and it takes the dirt with it. Let's have a close look here. Oh, here's one of our holes in the leaf. So something's been into this and started to eat around it. In fact, it's eaten right up to the membrane of the leaf. There's one side of it that it hasn't eaten through. It's probably the side with the little hairs. It makes it very hard for whatever it is that wants to eat it to eat those hairs as well. But they appear to have been eating from this side. So this is the back side of the leaf. We'll have a close look at this hole. There. And there's the edge where it's been eating. Yum, 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 yum. So let's go hunting. What have we got over here? Now I've got another structural part of the leaf. And there's another hole. There's some more hairs. If we keep following it up this way. Oh, hello. That's our culprit right there. you can see it's a little caterpillar. You can see the front legs at the front there. And there's its head, a little eye just down the bottom. He's not doing anything right at the moment, but he's probably just been eating that nice little hole out of the leaf just there. Let's follow him along. Oh, he's a long one. There we are. Teeny tiny little feet at back there. In fact, let's see if we can get a closer look at those feet. Let's get in a bit closer. Ooh. Yeah, we may not be able to get to those feet. That's as close as we're going to be able to get. But yeah, you can see his feet, some hairs at the back of him there. And so, oh, there we go. He's eating. Oh, nom 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 nom. Enjoying a nice diet of my plant from out the front. Let's move around and see if we can see any others. See if there's any of your brothers and sisters. Oh look, here's another one. Also eating. So these little caterpillars will at some point get into a cocoon, and then they'll turn into, well, what will they turn into? Will they turn into a moth or to a butterfly? Well, if anyone can grab a screen grab of what we're looking at right there, maybe we could hunt for some answers and find out what kind of caterpillar this is and what it ends up turning into. If you do have an answer for that, be sure to contact me, roughscience.net, and drop me a line. Let me know. All right. Let's start to wrap it up here. Let's come back to the table. Come back up to the macro world. So, I'm going to let these guys back outside after this show. But for now, that brings us more or less to the end of this Rough Science workshop. We're going to come back again to this 4:30 tomorrow. If you'd like some more instructions on how to make some of the slimes that we see here today, roughscience.net, and go to the live workshop link. Things are being updated at the moment. It's all a bit chaotic, but if it's not there soon, then just wait a little bit longer. Otherwise, there's a contact page there if you'd like to drop me a line. Let me know if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see at the Rough Science workshop. But for now, that brings us more or less to an end. And yeah, we still need a theme song, don't we? We need something catchy that'll just kind of take us out. Da da da, the slime show. Da da da. It's